Those of you that are tenants and your landlord recently increased rent without your notice, there's something you can actually do about it that is provided in the Nigerian law.
The court have mandated that before you increase the rent, renegotiate the rent or the fee that the tenant have been paying with him. If he accepts, then increase the rent. And if he doesn't accept, then you guys will only look for a way to go about it. As 1 year tenant, what the law said that you're entitled to 6 months notice if your landlord wants to evict you. Provisions have been made in the law. Just imagine an agent collecting legal fee. Are you a lawyer?
We saw a picture that went viral recently on Twitter and Instagram. Somebody that was paying rent of 600,000 naira posted that his rent has now been increased to 1.4 million naira. What do you have to say about such increase? Is it right?
Well, right or wrong is not what counts. Is it legal or is it legal or is it illegal? Now, from the provisions and judicial precedents in our law, even Recovery of Premises Act, a landlord cannot just, out of his own free volition or willy-nilly, come and increase rent. No. The most recent decision, I think, the case of Cobra Limited and Omole Estate, the court was strict and said, look, tenancy agreement or tenancy contract, it is a contract. Contract means it is between two persons. Before you effect any change in a contract, there must be renegotiation between the parties. Effecting change covers increasing rent. So you cannot come yourself as a landlord, increase the rent without giving prior notice to the tenant. So that's totally illegal. The court have mandated that before you increase the rent, renegotiate the rent or the fee that the tenant have been paying with him. If he accepts, then increase the rent. And if he doesn't accept, then you guys will only look for a way to go about it. But the one that a landlord will wake up one morning, I mean, to them, their excuses is that cost of living, inflation, which is totally understandable. This is where our laws, there should be laws regulating these things. There should be laws regulating how much should be paid on a particular distance for a particular years. But they leave it what they call trade practices and the rest. Shouldn't be so. Now look, our law says both, I think the laws that regulate housing is Urban and Regional Planning Act, Recovery of Premises Act, Land Use Act, even the Constitution. Now once you've increased rent and people can no longer afford it, you've denied them the right as provided in the Constitution of the right to own property or live anywhere they want to live. And that itself is unconstitutional, an infringement of fundamental human rights.
So what can the tenants do about it?
Now, what you as a tenant could do if your landlord, out of his own free violation, out of his own personal desire, either out of greed or selfish reasons, increase your rent without negotiating, is to go to court and enforce your right. And tell the court, look, this person increased my... And people don't know that failure to pay rent is not a ground for eviction. So that you fail to, unless you've continually failed to, that because and there are procedures to this. According to our Recovery of Premises Act, as 1 year tenant, what the law says that you're entitled to 6 months notice if your landlord wants to evict you. Let's say you are unable to pay rent or one thing or the other, or due to renovations, your landlord wants to take over the property. If you're a 1 year tenant, that means you're a 12-month tenant. The law mandates your landlord to give you at least 6 months notice or eviction notice. After the expiration of 6 months, the law mandates that the landlord gives you 1 month notice. After the expiration of that still there, then the law mandates that your landlord gives you 7-day notice of owner's intention to recover property. Now, once that is done and you're still not live, the landlord did not still have the power or the right to enforce right or approach it with the word of jungle justice. He will go to court and get a court order to evict you. So that's the process. But tenant doesn't know all these things.
But this law, I don't think is in favor of the landlord. A lot of you, especially those of you that are landlords, you might be angry this topic is coming up because bags of cement, gravel, sand, these things are now really expensive, and maybe you're not getting what you expected from the investments you put into it. But I think this video is also an avenue for you to understand deeply the risks of actually being a landlord, because some of you think that, oh, you're going into it to make money, but you should also consider what the law has provided. Okay, so this will really help you to make better choices. Do you think that this law is in support of the landlord? I mean, somebody has not paid me my rent and then I'm giving him almost 8 months.
Now,
8 months is like a huge loss to me.
Of course, I understand. Most times, if you check how laws are made to correct the ills of the society. Now, because of the autocratic nature of some landlords, because you feel that you are the one that owns the house. So laws will be made to protect the oppressed. So that's how some of this law come into play. The landlord, because he feel he's the lord of the house, can wake up tomorrow and throw you out because you feel. That's why provisions have been made in the law that say, look, even if you are the owner of the house, even the landlord is not the overlord. If you check our land use act, our land use act say that all land, including the properties on it, belongs to the government. So the government is the overall lord of the landlord. So the government can even come and take over, even as we are in this property now. The government can come at any time and take it over. What the law says is that the owner of the house is just entitled to compensation. So the government can even take it for the purpose of public use and said, okay, just like the landmark property that was demolished in Landmark Beach, for the public use that they want to pass through coastal railway, and you cannot do anything. So of course I understand that this particular law is not in favor of the landlords, but there are laws, there are avenues for it. But landlords, I've seen this law also working against my clients that are landlords. I believe that they should be balanced. There is this my client now, he probably see this video, he lives in abroad and he has a property in Lagos, and this tenant have been there. He converted the property from his personal. The property was given to him and let him and his family use, because the man is a pastor and the wife, they converted the property to church. So the man, yes, I'm telling you, now that's change of use, which you shouldn't do as a tenant. Once a property is illegal, now this is on the side of the tenant. Once a property, just like as I'm on this property, let's assume I rented this property for a private or for public, for me and my family to use now, and I converted it to a law firm, which is now public or commercial use. Now it is illegal. The landlord now have every right now to come and throw me out. And you yourself have breached the contract, because it happens often where some landlord will build houses and give to people to live, and those persons now will turn into service apartment. Now, the landlord have every right on that stance to evict such a tenant, because
immediately.
You've changed this. Once you've breached the contract.
Okay, what if in this tenancy contract that if you don't pay your rent, you leave it within a so period of time?
It doesn't matter now. Contracts are also subject under our laws. So if a contract is infringement on a statutory provision, now it cannot fly.
It cannot fly.
It can never fly, yes.
Okay, so what do you think tenants should do? Because a lot of people are having hard time right now. Some of you are in a really, really bad situation. Your landlord has increased rent almost times 3 of what you used to pay. And right now you are worried. What do you do? Where you are right now, you feel comfortable, you've made friends, you found it like it's easy for you to move around, and you don't even have so much money, and you don't have the convenience to start looking for another place to go to. What do someone like this do
now, if you can,
to protect, where they are?
If you can, I think sometimes it's just to reach out to your lawyer, and your lawyer could reach out to the landlord and say, look, this thing is illegal. I won't advise such a person to start seeking legal remedies, because I know that legal remedies could be expensive. The money you use in paying a lawyer should be enough for you to pay at least 1/3, unless there are lawyers that do pro bono and stuff. Even we ourselves in this firm, if the case is appealing enough, let's say you are struggling and maybe where you're living, you're paying 100,000, and the landlord exponentially increased it to like 1 million. Of course, there are lawyers that can take up such a matters and reach out to a compromise. But the best thing is to always come to agreement. Of course, I understand. I'm a landlord myself. I understand how much things cost now to rent properties. But you shouldn't offset or offload all those things to an innocent struggling. We are all feeling it. Everyone is feeling it. So you as a tenant, you should also understand that this is your right. Landlord shouldn't increase the rent without informing you or negotiating with you first. If a landlord does that,